Hello, friends. This is George Pappas, former immigration judge and attorney at law, devoting most of my practice to immigration. But we're here today to talk about immigration bonds and what a bond is and how the government is treating immigration bonds. So let me dive into this discussion, and hopefully it'll be useful for everybody listening. Generally, what is a bond? Well, if you're detained or arrested and you're put in jail or a detention center, you want to get out. And to get out, you have to convince a judge or a magistrate that you're not going to be a threat to public safety, or you're not going to be a flight risk, which means you'll come back when your court date is scheduled. So if you can convince a judge that you're not a threat to public safety and not a flight risk, they'll usually give you a bond, which means you pay money to get out of jail. And sometimes in immigration land, that's $1,500 and up. And as long as you appear to your court hearings, you won't lose that money. If you fail to appear, whatever you paid for a bond, you will lose. So the money's there to make sure you show up for your court dates. So in general, that's what a bond does, and that's what it is. In immigration land, it's a little different now. Up until July of this year, if you were an undocumented person and you were arrested by ICE, and you've been here for 10, 20 years, you would be arrested, you'd be detained, but you would also have a right to ask an immigration judge for a bond. And up until July, that was not a problem for immigration judges. They would grant bonds, they would deny bonds, which is what they do. And if you got a bond, great, you were out. But after July, the government changed its policy. It now says that if you entered the country without a visa and you are arrested, even if you've been here for 10, 20, 30 years, you are not only going to be detained, but you don't have a right to get a bond, not even ask for a bond. Now, that is a sea change. And the courts have ruled what's right and what's wrong, what's lawful and what's unlawful about what this government is doing. Clearly, the government's goal here is to deport anybody they can find that did not come in with a visa. That's really where they're coming from here. They're going to make it hard for people to fight their claims to remain in the United States, whether it's asylum or other relief. So they're not really concerned about following the law. They just want to move people out. And this is where we have a problem with the current administration. Because after July 8th, they said everybody is mandatorily detainable and you can't ask for a bond. And therefore, after September, there was a case called Hurtado from the Board of Immigration of Appeals. That body, that Board of Immigration of Appeals, provides decisions, immigration decisions, that force judges to do certain things. They have to follow what the board says in most cases. And after September, the board said, yes, we agree with the administration. So if you've entered the United States without a visa and you've been arrested by ICE, you can't ask for a bond. And if you've applied, let's say, for asylum, you're going to have to stay in jail while you wait for that decision to be made at a final hearing. Well, obviously, a lot of people were upset with this change in policy because the government was not doing this for 20, 30 years. And there's no statutory rule that says they're right. In fact, it went to court in California, and the U.S. District Court in California said what the government is doing, what the Department of Homeland Security is doing, is unlawful. People that have been here for more than 2 years do have a right to ask for a bond. Doesn't mean they'll get it, but they have a right to ask. People that have been here for under 2 years and enter the country either without inspection or are seeking to admit themselves into the United States can be deported immediately from the border or within days. That's called expedited removal. Those folks don't have the due process Fifth Amendment rights that folks who have lived here for more than 2 years. So that category of people has always been subject to what we call expedited removal. What the government did in July is make everybody subject to expedited removal. And that's not lawful. The court in California ruled early this past fall that's unlawful. And they actually used the phrase, we vacate Hurtado. That's right. Vacate means we dismiss it, overrule it. Because that's an important term. Because just a few days ago, the chief judge for the Executive Office of Immigration Review told all the judges in the United States, all the immigration judges, that we will not follow that court ruling in California because that court did not expressly vacate hartardo, despite the fact that that word vacator, was in the decision. So the Executive Office of Immigration Review is unlawfully pressuring and telling immigration judges, do not hear bond requests. It's outrageous. In fact, there was a decision ruled in Massachusetts in their district court where they ruled that people that fall within this category, who've been here for more than 2 years and who are subject to detention, do have a right to ask for a bond. And they created a special class to qualify that those people in what's called the First Circuit Court of Appeal area, New England, Boston, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, that category, those states fall under that rule. So between the ruling in Massachusetts, the ruling in California, both U.S. circuit courts, which was certified for their classes, the one in California was a nationwide certification, said immigration judges cannot deny applications for a bond. Yet that's what they're doing. They're forcing lawyers now to go to federal court, which mandates that immigration judges on a case-by-case basis do have to give a bond hearing to most of the applicants who file petitions for what's called habeas corpus. Obviously, if you have a criminal background, you're not going to get a bond. So we're not talking about those folks. We're talking about folks who've been paying taxes, have jobs, run companies, raise families, have great kids, have never had a problem with the law while they've lived here, except for their civil violation of entering the country without inspection. And most people don't realize this, but coming into the United States without a visa is a civil violation. Yet people are treated worse than criminals when they're arrested. That's another discussion. So what I'm trying to do here is to show you and tell you that the White House, the Department of Justice, which oversees the Executive Office of Immigration Review, is defying federal court orders which have ruled what they're doing is unlawful. They're violating the Fifth Amendment rights of these people. Remember, the Fifth Amendment applies to people, not just citizens, and they have a right to seek a bond. Doesn't mean they'll get it, but they have that right. That's called due process. The government's denying that because if they deny it and compel people to stay in jail, most of those folks don't want to stay in those horrible conditions. The conditions in detention centers are horrible, and they're trying to pressure folks to self-deport. Sign a piece of paper, get me out of here. That's exactly what's been happening. So this is part of the deportation machine.